Next, on Current News, President Biden takes to the road, trying to sell his nearly $2 trillion COVID relief package. Can it be done before unemployment benefits run out for millions? Then, U.S. bishops say they're done talking, disbanding a committee meant to take on the president's pro-abortion stance. Plus, an immoral experiment where hundreds were lied to and deceived, the effects still being felt today.
African Americans can be assured that this is not an experiment of someone trying to kill us all.
Hi everyone, it's Gabby.
And you'll meet the Catholic high schooler who's raising thousands as she conquers adversity with cooking. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. President Joe Biden is getting ready to take his first official domestic trip of his presidency, traveling to Milwaukee, where he'll make stops to reinforce his agenda as he tries to push his massive relief bill through a deeply divided Congress before current benefits run out. President Biden is looking to drum up support for his $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package, so he's taking his message directly to the public. Biden taking his first official trip as president on Tuesday to Wisconsin, where he'll make the case for his relief package during a CNN town hall. On Thursday, it's off to Michigan to a Pfizer vaccine manufacturing plant. Back in Washington, the Biden administration is still playing catch up on safely reopening more schools and boosting the national vaccine and testing plans. A group of bipartisan governors sending the president a letter asking for better coordination on distributing vaccines between the federal and the state governments, an issue Biden noted in a meeting with local leaders at the White House last week.
What I found when I got here that we thought was available in terms of everything from vaccine to vaccinators was not the case. So I thank them for the work they did in their cities and their states in order to respond to the crisis.
The president is also still struggling to get Republicans on board with his relief bill. But with pandemic relief and vaccines on the line, Democrats are growing impatient, ready to move forward without Republican support.
We are going to rush to get this done, to help deploy more vaccine, to help get kids back into school safely, and to provide the other important benefits in this rescue package. And if Republicans are willing to join us in that effort, we will work with those who want to join us.
Another major hurdle, a provision to hike the federal minimum wage to $15, a proposal opposed not only by Senate Republicans, but also two Democrats. And with enhanced pandemic unemployment benefits scheduled to expire March 14th, Senator Bernie Sanders says there's no time to waste.
Congress has got to move forward vigorously, do what the President of the United States campaigned on and wants to do. That's what we've got to do, not only to help American people, but to restore faith that government, in fact, can respond to the needs of ordinary Americans.
The House Budget Committee will meet this week to put together a final bill. A full House vote to pass the legislation could happen as early as next week. But there could be problems in the Senate, where Democrats can't afford to lose a single-party vote. If a plan isn't reached, 11 million workers could lose their benefits by mid-March. The U.S. bishops have completed their talks about President Joe Biden. The working group formed last November was meant to discuss the second Catholic president's pro-abortion stance. Now they say their work is done and a document could be in the works, which will answer the question over whether Biden will be denied communion. Biden has been regularly attending Mass since his inauguration. In a statement to Current News, a spokesperson for the USCCB said they cannot comment on the status of the working group at this time. Someone who has spoken out, Cardinal Wilton Gregory of Washington. During a report for NBC's Today Show, host Al Roker said Cardinal Gregory thought the bishop's statement criticizing some of Biden's policies on his inauguration was, quote, ill-timed, and reiterated that the church and the president agree on many other things. The Archdiocese has not commented on the report, but has shared the story to their Facebook page. While the U.S. bishops have thrown their support behind the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, one they don't approve of is AstraZeneca's. the drug maker just getting emergency approval from the World Health Organization. The shot is less expensive and easier to store than other vaccines. The authorization will help trigger the delivery of hundreds of millions of doses to countries that have signed up for the United Nations COVAX effort. The initiative aims to deliver vaccines to the world's most vulnerable. As more vaccines continue to hit the market, one challenge has been to convince some communities, especially minorities, to roll up their sleeves for the shots, partly because of ill-conceived medical studies like the Tuskegee experiment. Now, a Maryland nutritionist is among health officials promoting COVID-19 vaccinations, and that reason hits home. One of her relatives died while being part of that infamous experiment. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more.
Sharon Hawks says it's been hard to hear, people citing the Tuskegee experiment as one reason they're reluctant to take a COVID vaccine.
That brought up bad emotions.
Because her own grandfather, a man named Willie Harris, was a part of that experiment until his death in 1960.
It's always been a part of the family history. We didn't talk about it much.
From 1932 until 1972, the Federal Public Health Service used about 600 impoverished sharecroppers in rural Alabama near Tuskegee to study the natural course of syphilis. They were promised treatment, but they were only given placebos. That deceit leading to a mistrust of medicine, which for some continues to this day.
The fact that they experimented on him for so many years without him even knowing what they were doing is painful.
But Hawks, who is a nutritionist and director of health outreach for Reed Temple AME Church in Glendale, Maryland, where she's helping run a new pop-up COVID vaccination clinic, says she now wants to share her story so the doubt can be overcome.
I felt it was a moral obligation to let people know and to get them comfortable with it.
With people lined up and eager to be vaccinated, Hawks hopes resistance is already fading.
African Americans can be assured that this is not an experiment or someone trying to kill us off. Everyone is going after the same vaccine.
Her grandfather, she says, was denied treatment which could have extended his life. She now hopes people don't deny themselves a vaccine which could save theirs. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Minority communities are many times the most underserved. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio is hoping to address disparities in the city's vaccination efforts by introducing vaccination sites for vulnerable and at-risk communities.
The amazing work of our task force on racial inclusion and equity has led to a clear definition of where the danger is greatest and where the outreach efforts have to be deepest, where the mistrust has to be overcome.
The city will be opening up new vaccination sites at Empire Outlets on Staten Island and at Teachers Prep High School in Brooklyn. De Blasio is also focusing on administering the vaccine to homebound seniors and their health care aides. All this despite a shortage of doses. As if there aren't enough problems with the vaccine rollout, now vaccination sites are being impacted by the weather. Powerful back-to-back storms are dumping piles of snow and ice all across the country, impacting nearly 200 million people. And it's coming our way. Steve Nannis has more.
From the Pacific Northwest to the New Mexican deserts, from the Central Plains to the Gulf Coast, a surge of Arctic air plunging more than half of the country into a deep freeze.
We've just been trying to make it through, stay warm, and just stay in the house.
Over the past week, nearly 2,000 cold temperature records have been shattered.
I think the last I looked, it was -3.
The frigid temperatures knocking out utilities and cell service to millions.
The current conditions continue to be dire as pertains the power.
In Texas, residents acclimated to much milder weather are struggling to conserve power and water as they dig out from snow and ice left by a powerful winter storm.
We've tried to lower the thermostat as much as possible to help meet the energy demands in the area.
Officials there warning it could be days before the power's back on, as they urge caution amongst residents trying to stay warm.
The second biggest challenge that could be really a crisis within the crisis is the carbon monoxide poisoning.
The massive storm also pummeling the Midwest and the South, dumping snow and ice, and spawning deadly tornadoes in North Carolina. Nearly 200 million Americans remain under winter weather alerts as the destructive system now moves into the Northeast.
We're obviously closely monitoring the forecast to make sure that we have the right resources at the right place.
Steve Nannis, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. COVID variants, kids in COVID, COVID vaccines. Questions continue to swirl. We're checking in with Dr. Tabali for answers. Then she's cooking up a storm and raising money for a cause close to her heart. Wait till you meet Gabby DISALVO. And a beloved statue vandalized months ago has now been restored thanks to parishioners and strangers alike. Those stories are coming up. Stay with us.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Here in New York, more than 1 million residents are now fully vaccinated, but there are still many questions and fears about this virus. Here to answer them is Dr. Robert Tabali, an infectious disease specialist with the Catholic Medical Association. And Dr. Tabali, as you know, the CDC now says fully vaccinated people can skip quarantine if they've been exposed to someone with the virus. So how long after your second shot do you build full immunity, and can you then stop wearing your mask?
Well, that's very important to qualify exactly what quarantine means.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the first shot, about 30% of people get a significant boost in immunity. And then after the second shot, it's almost everyone has a very, very high and steep rise in immunity. The booster shot, very important. And so about 14 days after the second shot is when you have your maximum level of immune take or immunity developed by the vaccine. So what that means is, at that point, until 4 months after you get the vaccine, if you're exposed to someone with COVID, that means you don't have to stay in your house for 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
That's what the quarantine means. It doesn't mean that you're immune from getting infection. You still have to wear your mask. You still have to do social distancing. You still have to do hand hygiene.
I want to ask you something quick, though, because you said up to 4 months. So what do you mean? After you get the 2 shots, up to 4 months, we don't really know what's going to happen after then?
Well, that's the last sentence in the CDC recommendation. So from 2 weeks after the vaccination for 4 months, because we know that immunity lasts for at least 4 months.
Wow.
From these messenger RNA vaccines, but we don't know how much longer immunity will last. That information will be available in the months to come, but it's a window, 2 weeks to 4 months after the vaccine.
All right, some concerning news for parents from the CDC. It reports there are more than 2,000 cases of COVID-linked syndrome among children. It seems the number of cases are growing and they're more severe. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this COVID-linked syndrome is actually the multi-system inflammatory syndrome that we were talking about earlier. Initially was most common among Hispanic and Black children. And it's very similar to something called Kawasaki's disease, almost indistinguishable in certain situations, but it can inflame the heart, inflame the blood vessels, cause organ issues, organ failure, respiratory failure. It's very serious. It's likely an immune response to the infection. And, we just don't know if the children that are getting them are having their first infection, their second, or their third infection with COVID, because many of them are asymptomatic. If this is a building immune issue, or if it's a strain-specific issue. But it is very concerning to parents all over the country, without question.
But it is still rare, even though the numbers are growing, right?
Still rare.
Okay.
Very rare,
All right.
even though the numbers are growing.
All right, right now the vaccines are only for people over the age of 16. Why is that? And will children eventually have to get the shot as well?
Well, they're trying to recruit children into studies right now. The initial studies did not include children, and that was because children seem to not have serious illness with a disease. And so they wanted to study as many people that would benefit mostly from the vaccine. So they're trying to recruit children into the vaccine studies now, and the vaccine manufacturers are having a great difficulty in getting children enrolled in the studies.
Interesting. All right, always good to get answers from Dr. Robert Tabali of the Catholic Medical Association. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And tomorrow on Currents News, we'll have more answers to your COVID questions with Dr. Tabali, including if we should be worried about the new variants holding up against the vaccines. That's Wednesday on Currents News. Even with COVID cases falling and the vaccine rollout ramping up, it's still affecting every aspect of our lives. But that hasn't stopped one Catholic high school student who has garnered a lot of attention for her quarantine hobby. Now she's using that attention to fundraise for a cause close to her heart. Currents News' Emily Drewby has her inspiring story that proves you can do anything you put your mind to.
Gabby DISALVO calls it cooking on wheels. Like many, the Severian high school student picked up the new hobby during quarantine, launching an Instagram account. Now she's stirring up success and adding a hefty dash of donations.
Hi everyone, it's Gabby.
Gabby was diagnosed with myofibrillar myopathy, an incredibly rare disease in children. Doctors told her at the time she was just one of 3 kids with it.
The muscles in my entire body, so every single muscle, my hands, my legs, my arms, everything, it's extremely weak.
At birth, Gabby was told she would never walk, but she found a way.
Because my muscles are so weak, I would take a step and shift my weight like that, like about 16 times more drastically. So it caused almost like a swaying motion.
But the sway movement caused scoliosis, which led to surgery.
Because it took away that ability to sway, I was no longer able to walk, which has made me wheelchair bound.
The muscle weakening that comes with her condition made it hard to cook. But like with all her other challenges, she found a way.
So this is how I mince my garlic, because I can't use a typical mincer.
Creating adaptations and utilizing kitchen tools.
I have learned how to basically turn it into something that I can do completely on my own, or almost completely on my own. You know, might not be perfect, might not be what you see on TV of the professionals, but I have turned it into what I'm capable of doing.
The account has taken off. She's teaching virtual cooking classes and was even featured on The Rachel Ray Show. For the past 4 years, Gabby has raised $25,000 for Global Genes, a foundation for the over 400 million people affected by rare diseases. Because of the pandemic, the normal bake sale and ribbon sale fundraisers are impossible this year. Instead, she's holding a virtual bake-along and cook-along. She's already got a $10,000 donation from Rachel Ray. Cooking for a cause and inspiring others while she does it. In Staten Island, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Gabby will be holding her bake-along on February 27th and her cook-along on February 28th, which is Rare Disease Day. Anyone interested in joining her can check out her Instagram account. Just search for cooking.on.wheels on the app. The tablet is now curating content specifically for you. With a free login that requires just a name and email, DeSales Media Group's newspaper will be allowing readers to customize, filtering out what they don't want and getting access to more of what they do like, such as exclusive articles, features, columns, as well as the tablet's online archive. Vito Formica, the executive director of news content and development for DeSales Media Group, the tablet's parent company, says the feature is the latest way DeSales is reaching out to readers.
At the end of the day, our mission is to evangelize, and we use all of our platforms at DeSales within the news department, television, newspaper, print, digital, to reach our audience. This is a way for us to connect with them a little bit more and for them to connect with us and personalize the experience so that they get the information and news that they want when they want it.
Readers who don't sign up will still be able to view the tablet.org, and the tablet website will still be free. For readers who enjoy holding a newspaper in their hands, the print version of the tablet will have more content than what's online. A church in El Paso, Texas, vandalized after a trio of angel statues were found toppled over and broken last week. The 3 statues were destroyed on the parish grounds of St. Pius X. The church is working with law enforcement to identify potential suspects. This marks the 2nd time in recent months where Catholic statues in El Paso have been targeted. Back in September, a century-old statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus was decapitated in St. Patrick's Cathedral there. Thanks to an outpouring of support from generous donors who raised over $38,000 for its restoration, it's now been restored and making its way back home. At the Vatican, Pope Francis is inviting the Cardinals of Rome to kick off the Lenten season with a week of prayer. The Holy Father typically participates in a week-long retreat at the start of Lent, but due to the pandemic, the Pope will instead lead spiritual exercises from his residence in the Vatican from February 21st to the 26th, suspending his usual engagements, including general audiences. And you can watch Pope Francis celebrate Mass at St. Peter's this Ash Wednesday, February 17th, right here on Net TV. The Mass starts at 3:30 p.m. Still to come on Currents News, a touching story of a Colorado woman who finally got to see her family for the first time in over a year, all thanks to the vaccine. That story ahead. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A coronavirus vaccine is making a world of difference for one nursing home resident in Fort Collins, Colorado. The reason? She was able to sit down in the same room with her family for the first time in more than a year. Gary Brode has the story.
Hello. Hi. Oh my God, it's been forever.
It's a moment the Jensen family has been looking forward to for nearly a year.
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
89-year-old Marilyn Jensen worried this would never happen.
I just couldn't hardly believe it was going to happen.
Two of her boys, Terry and Randy, and daughter-in-law Tricia, finally got to sit down at a table together.
Emotional. I mean, she's my mom too, and you know, it's hard.
It's the first time they've all gathered since Christmas of 2019.
It's like really emotional because, like I said, we haven't been in the same room with her, or even though we can't give her a hug, right? It's just being able to not have to look through a window.
Marilyn lives at Good Samaritan Society in Fort Collins. In June, the family was able to visit with Mom outside at a distance. Since then, their only interaction has come with glass between them.
It was kind of cold this time of the year sitting outside.
Marilyn admits the time away has been tough on her, seeking comfort in religion to get her through.
My outlet is going to the chapel.
Her prayers were answered when she received her second vaccine in January.
Can we like shut the doors and go give you a hug and nobody knows?
Unfortunately, their first embrace since the pandemic began will have to wait.
It's very hard not to rush over there and throw my arms around them and give them big hugs.
But this brief yet powerful interaction gives them hope it will happen soon enough.
There's just so much that people take for granted that you can't do, and just looking forward to when we can do that again.
That was Gary Brode reporting, and while Marilyn Jensen still has to sit 6 feet away from her family, she's hoping it won't be too long before they can hug, because we all need that little bit of human contact. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.